Let's start with a truth most people are too afraid to say out loud. The more you explain yourself, the less they respect you. The more you chase, the further they run. And the more you beg to be understood, the more invisible you become. We live in a world that rewards loudness, oversharing, overcompensating, overspeaking. People are obsessed with proving something. Proving they're right. Proving they matter. Proving their worth to people who've already decided not to see it. But the Stoic, he doesn't move like that. The Stoic doesn't chase validation. He doesn't beg to be heard. He doesn't need to defend his soul to people committed to misunderstanding it. Because his silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. It's clarity. It's power. And if you've ever been ghosted, misjudged, ignored after giving your best, this message is for you. Because right now, you might be tempted to send one more text. Explain one more time. Pour your truth into one more person who never had the depth to hold it. Don't. There's a moment when speaking becomes a trap, and silence becomes your liberation. In this video, we're not here to just talk about philosophy. We're going to equip you with it. We're going to break down 6 Stoic truths that will flip the way you respond to rejection, conflict, or emotional chaos. These aren't theories. They're ancient principles, tested across centuries, used by warriors, leaders, emperors, and today by those who refuse to let external noise control their inner peace. If you're tired of being emotionally drained, if you've given too many chances, if you've explained your heart 1,000 times and still felt unheard, then don't miss a single second of what's coming next. This isn't a motivational clip you half-watch while scrolling. This is your shift, your blueprint, your line in the sand. So here's what I want you to do. Like this video if you already feel the weight of these words. Comment as we go, especially when something hits. Share this with someone who needs to hear it more than they need another apology. And most importantly, don't skip any part. Because one idea in here, just one, might be the difference between breaking down or finally breaking free. Let's begin. Truth number 1. Silence makes them feel your absence, not just hear your word. Have you ever noticed this strange shift? When you're speaking, explaining, chasing, no one seems to really hear you. But the moment you go silent, the room changes. People start paying attention, not to your voice, but to your absence. That's the paradox of silence. It doesn't repel, it pulls. And that's what most people never learn. Because the moment they feel dismissed, disrespected, or ghosted, their first instinct is to react. Say something. Fight back. Prove your worth. Defend your truth. You send another message. You write the paragraph. You pour your heart into another conversation with someone who was never even listening. Why? Because we're conditioned to believe that more words equals more clarity. That if we just say it right, they'll understand. That if we explain enough, they'll change. But the Stoics knew what modern society has forgotten. People don't hear you louder when you speak more. They hear you clearer when you say less. And sometimes the clearest thing you'll ever say is nothing at all. Let's be real. We've all been there. Someone ghosts you. Someone pulls away without explanation. Someone treats you like you're disposable. And your instinct? Your entire body wants to react. Your ego wants to scream, "How dare you ignore me?" Your heart wants to cry out, "Please just tell me what I did wrong." But here's the hard truth. The more you talk, the less they hear. The more you chase, the more they run. The more you explain, the less they value your words. Because when someone already made up their mind to misunderstand you, there's no amount of explaining that can change them. And every extra message you send, every argument you engage in, every attempt to win them back, it sends a subtle signal. You have power over me. My peace depends on how you respond. Please give me back the validation I lost. That's not strength. That's self-betrayal. Now let's flip the script. Let's talk about the Stoic approach. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, was betrayed, backstabbed, slandered. Did he chase? Did he beg to be understood? Did he waste words on people committed to dishonor? No. He wrote this instead. The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. And that starts with restraint. Silence isn't avoidance. It's clarity. It says, I see what you did, I felt how you treated me, and I'm choosing not to dignify it with reaction. I respect myself enough not to explain myself to someone who already decided I'm not worth listening to. That kind of silence terrifies people because most people expect noise. They expect a response. They expect drama, protest, anger, tears. When they get nothing, not even a whisper, they're left alone with the only voice that matters, their own. And silence forces people to hear themselves, their choices, their cruelty, their cowardice. That's what makes it powerful. Not loud power, but quiet, focused, dangerous power. Silence is a mirror. It reflects everything back to the one who wronged you without you lifting a finger. When you withdraw instead of react, you're no longer playing their emotional game. And here's what happens next. The ones who used you get confused. They were expecting access. The ones who disrespected you get anxious. They didn't think you'd stay silent. The ones who mistook your kindness for weakness get nervous because now you've stopped giving them your energy. He who does not understand your silence will probably not understand your words. Albert Hubbard, read that again. If someone can't feel your absence, they never appreciated your presence. You see, when you go quiet, truly quiet, you reclaim the energy you once gave away so freely. You stop trying to be understood by people who haven't even begun to understand themselves. You stop over-explaining your intentions to people who never had the emotional depth to hold your truth in the first place. And that silence, it's not empty. It's full of dignity, full of strength, full of self-respect. Let's be clear about one thing. This doesn't mean you go silent out of bitterness. Stoic silence is not passive-aggressive. It's not manipulative. It's not ego-driven. It's not the silence of someone trying to punish others. It's the silence of someone no longer willing to punish themselves. It's not a silent treatment. It's a sacred boundary. You're not trying to hurt them. You're finally choosing not to hurt yourself anymore. You're not waiting for them to come back. You're allowing space for something better to enter. Here's the truth most people never learn. Some wounds heal faster when you stop talking about them. Some situations gain clarity when you stop forcing closure. Some people only learn the value of your presence when they finally have to live without it. Let them feel that. Let your absence do what your words never could. Let your silence speak louder than the 1,000 texts you'll never send. So the next time someone disrespects you, before you pick up your phone, before you write that paragraph, before you start crafting the perfect reply, pause. Ask yourself, is this person truly worth my words? Or are they only worth my absence? Because if they really cared, they would ask. If they truly respected you, they would never put you in a position where silence was necessary. And if they don't, you don't need to explain it. Let your silence say it all. Truth number 2. When you stay silent, you hear the truth louder. We live in the noisiest age in human history. Every second, someone's talking, posting, commenting, explaining, debating. Everyone wants to be heard, but no one is listening. And when pain hits, when the heartbreak comes, when betrayal knocks the wind out of your chest, most people don't sit with it. They run to the phone, to distraction, to comfort, to someone who will give them a temporary fix. But the Stoic, he moves in the opposite direction. When the world gets louder, he gets quieter. When the pain screams, he doesn't scream back. He listens. Not to them, not to the noise, to himself. Because the truth is, most of what we think is confusion isn't confusion. It's avoidance. It's our mind running circles around a truth we're not ready to accept yet. So what do? We distract ourselves. We ask for advice we don't actually need. We call people just to feel less alone, not to grow. We repeat the same story hoping someone else can give us the closure we're refusing to give ourselves. But silence exposes that pattern. It says, stop talking, start reflecting. And that's when the real truth rises. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Let's break that down. When someone hurts you, the pain is real. But the suffering, the obsession, the fixation, the replays, that's coming from your interpretation of the event. It's the story you've told yourself about what happened, about what it meant, about what it says about you. Silence interrupts the story. It creates space, and in that space, truth has room to speak. But here's the challenge. The truth you hear in silence is rarely comfortable. It doesn't coddle your ego. It doesn't play victim. It tells it straight. You'll hear things like, they didn't respect you, they just liked the access. You weren't mad they left, you were mad you ignored the signs. You don't need closure, you need courage. You kept showing up for someone who wouldn't even meet you halfway. You weren't betrayed out of nowhere. You were betraying yourself long before they did. Those realizations, they don't come from texting 5 friends. They don't come from scrolling for answers online. They don't come from confronting someone who lacks emotional maturity. They come from silence. From turning down the volume on the world so you can finally hear your own inner wisdom speak. The Stoics didn't fear silence. They trained in it. They journaled. They meditated. They walked in solitude. They sat with hard emotions, not to judge them, but to understand them. Because silence is where you separate your emotions from your values. Let's unpack that. When you're emotionally triggered, everything feels urgent. Your emotions scream, text them now, fix this, don't let them win. They need to know how you feel, but your values? They whisper. They say, protect your peace, hold your boundary, don't prove your worth, live it, let go with dignity. And the only way you'll ever hear your values over your emotions is in silence. Modern society teaches the opposite. It says, speak your mind immediately. Don't let anyone get away with disrespect. React fast, react loud, react now. But Stoicism teaches pause, stillness, reflection. Because reactivity is easy, but wisdom takes time. And in that pause, you gain what most people lose in conflict, perspective. Here's what happens when you get quiet. You realize most of your pain wasn't from the event. It was from holding on. You see that needing someone to understand you has been blocking your own understanding of yourself. You begin to understand that real peace doesn't require closure. It requires acceptance. You stop asking, why did they do that? And start asking, why did I stay? These aren't things you can be told. They're things you discover. And you can only discover them when the world goes quiet and you finally listen within. Let's be very clear. Silence is not passivity. It's not avoidance. It's not inaction. It's preparation. It's awareness. It's power. It's the discipline to sit in the discomfort and not run. Most people aren't avoiding pain. They're avoiding the stillness that would force them to face the truth. But here's the paradox. The truth you're avoiding, it's also your healing. And silence is what delivers it. Here's a practice. Next time you feel overwhelmed, don't call. Don't post. Don't vent. Just stop. Go for a walk. Sit in nature. Open a blank journal. Ask no one but yourself, what is this really about? And then wait. No distractions. No noise. Just you, the question, and the silence that follows. Stay long enough and the answers will come. Because when you choose silence, real silence, you're no longer at the mercy of chaos. You stop reacting to life. You start responding to it. And every time you choose stillness over noise, you train your mind to become less impulsive and more powerful. That's the Stoic way. Not silence out of fear, but silence out of mastery. You're not lost. You're learning. You're not stuck. You're still. Because stillness is where the voice of your true self finally becomes loud enough to be heard. Truth number 3, begging for closure is a form of self-betrayal. Let's talk about a form of pain that almost no one wants to admit. Begging for closure. You tell yourself you just need one more conversation, one more message, one honest answer, one explanation to make sense of the chaos they left behind. You believe if they would just tell you why, you could let go. You could move on. You could finally breathe again. But here's the Stoic truth. If someone truly cared, you wouldn't have to beg for closure. They would offer it with respect, freely, clearly, completely. The fact that you're having to chase it, that's your answer. And in that moment, when you reach out again, ask again, plead again, you're not just seeking closure. You're betraying yourself. Let's call this what it is. Closure begging is often just emotional desperation in disguise. You're not looking for peace, you're looking for permission. Permission to let go. Permission to heal. Permission to accept that someone you love chose to hurt you, or worse, ignore you. And so you stay in a loop. 1, they mistreat or abandon you. 2, you seek explanation. 3, they avoid, deflect, stay silent, or give you vague half answers. Or you feel worse than before, confused, raw, disrespected. 5, you try again, hoping this time will be different. This cycle can last weeks, months, even years. And every time you go back, you shrink a little more. You lose a little more self-trust. You lose your dignity trying to make someone else feel something they may no longer have the capacity to feel. And the hardest part? Most people aren't denying you closure out of cruelty. They're denying you closure because they already made peace with how they treated you. This is why Stoicism is so radical. Because it refuses to let your healing depend on someone else's explanation. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." Let's apply that here. Don't explain your worth. Don't explain your pain. Don't explain why they should have treated you better. Embody the lesson. Their silence, that's your closure. Their absence, that's your clarity. Their avoidance, that's your answer. You don't need a conversation. You need a decision. And that decision is this: I will no longer chase peace in places that broke it in the first place. Here's the emotional trap most people fall into. They confuse expression with resolution. They think, if I just express how I feel, they'll finally understand. And if they understand, they'll care. And if they care, they'll say something that finally heals me. But what actually happens? You end up bleeding emotionally in front of someone who's already numb. You pour your heart out to someone who doesn't have the maturity or willingness to hold it. You hand them your deepest wounds, hoping they'll fix what they broke, and they give you silence, deflection, or worse, gaslighting. And you walk away feeling even more broken than before. That's not closure. That's emotional self-abandonment. Here's what the Stoics did instead. They stopped chasing the why. They stopped needing the apology. They stopped expecting the people who hurt them to also be the ones to heal them, because they knew something sacred. Closure is not something you're given, it's something you choose. It's the moment you say, I accept that I will never get the conversation I wanted, and I'm walking away anyway. I see now that my worth was never theirs to validate. I refuse to stay emotionally stuck because someone else couldn't communicate like an adult. It's hard, it's raw, but it's also powerful. Because once you stop seeking closure, you start reclaiming yourself. You start making peace with the silence. You start writing the ending they never had the courage to write. You stop checking your phone hoping for the message that never comes. You stop needing them to get it because you finally do. And that's the shift. That's the Stoic transformation. From they owe me closure to I owe myself healing. Let me give you a practice, one that's painful but essential. Write the message you want to send. The paragraph. The truth. The heartbreak. The I just need you to know letter. Then read it, feel it, honor it. And don't send it. Delete it. Because that letter is not for them. It's for you. It's your release. It's your grief. It's your internal closure. And when you delete it, not in bitterness, but in clarity, you're saying something sacred. I choose myself over the need to be understood. Here's what happens when you stop begging for closure. You stop checking your phone every 5 minutes. You stop writing letters you'll never send. You stop playing back old conversations trying to find what you missed. You stop rehearsing what you would say if they finally reached out. And in that space, self-respect begins to breathe again. You realize you don't need their explanation to move forward. You don't need their agreement to feel valid. You don't need their permission to let go. Because you were never broken. You were just waiting for someone to choose you the way you should have chosen yourself. Now's that time. The Stoic path is not about pretending it doesn't hurt. It's about refusing to let that hurt control you. It's about stepping out of the emotional maze and saying, enough, I don't need closure. I need freedom. And that freedom, it starts with silence. It continues with space. And it ends with you walking away, not out of pride, but out of deep, unshakable self-respect. Truth number 4, silence exposes what words try to hide. Words are powerful, but they can also be a mask. They can clothe intentions. They can decorate dishonesty. They can create illusions so comforting, you forget they were never real. Someone says, I'm sorry, but nothing changes. Someone promises, I'll do better, but their patterns say otherwise. Someone tells you, I never meant to hurt you, but they do, again and again. And yet, because we want to believe, because we're scared of what silence might reveal, we accept the performance. That's the danger of words. They can be used to protect others from consequence and protect ourselves from clarity. But silence? Silence doesn't lie. Silence doesn't need translation. It doesn't need spin. It doesn't require interpretation. It's raw. It's clear. And it's often the most honest thing a person will ever give you. What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Read that again. Because Stoics understood this long before modern psychology gave it language. They didn't just listen to words. They studied patterns. They didn't judge by apologies. They judged by action, by consistency, by what people did when no one was looking. And you know the best way to see someone's truth? Stop talking. Just go still. Withdraw your energy. Withdraw your explanations. Withdraw your presence. And watch. Silence will reveal what words we're trying to cover. Here's what most people don't realize. When you stop talking, people reveal themselves. Quickly. Because you've taken away their ability to manipulate with language. Suddenly, they can't smooth things over. Suddenly, they can't reset the narrative. Suddenly, they can't use your compassion against you. So what do? Some disappear completely because they were only there for what you gave. Some lash out because they lost control over your emotions. Some go quiet because they never planned to stay once the performance ended. That's the truth. And it's brutal. But it's real. People can fake love with words, but they can't fake consistency in your absence. Stoic silence is not about giving someone the cold shoulder. It's about stepping out of the performance. It's about choosing observation over participation. It's about saying, I no longer want to hear what you say. I want to watch what you do, because actions are fluent. And most people don't realize how much truth they confess when they think no one is listening. Here's what silence helps you see. Who checks in when you're quiet and who disappears. Who respects your space and who panics without access to your energy. Who starts rumors and who protects your name even when you're not in the room. Who mirrors accountability and who dodges responsibility. Who grows when you stop fixing and who crumbles when they can no longer use you. You can't force these insights through dialogue. They only appear in distance, in detachment, in quiet observation. And here's the paradox. People are more uncomfortable with your silence than your words. When you argue, they know how to fight back. When you beg, they know how to deflect. When you explain, they know how to twist. But when you say nothing, now they're stuck with their own thoughts. They replay their actions. They start questioning what they did. They wonder if maybe, this time, they pushed too far. And that uncertainty, that space, that's where their illusion begins to collapse. The Stoics didn't believe in theatrics. They believed in reality. And reality doesn't require commentary, it just needs clarity. When someone consistently treats you poorly, but suddenly apologizes when you go silent, ask yourself, is this apology about them understanding the pain they caused? Or is it about them regaining access to your peace? Because people don't miss you when they realize you're gone. They miss the benefits of your presence. And that's what silence uncovers. Let me say something hard but necessary. If you go quiet and someone's first reaction is anger or manipulation, they were never invested in you. They were invested in the version of you they could control. If you withdraw your words and someone becomes defensive or hostile, they weren't used to being accountable. If you stop explaining yourself and someone fades into the background, they were only close to you because of what you explained, not who you were. And if someone's love disappears when your voice does, it was never love. It was convenience. So what do? You stop pleading. You stop testing. You stop reopening closed doors to see if they still creak the same. You go quiet, not as revenge, but as revelation. Because some people need to feel the void you leave behind. Not because you want to hurt them, but because that's the only way they'll ever recognize the space you once filled. Your silence is the mirror. Let them look into it. Here's what happens when you make silence your standard. You stop wasting energy on verbal chess matches. You stop defending your character to people who don't deserve access to it. You stop wondering if their words will change, because now you're watching their habits. You begin to value stillness over strategy. You learn that sometimes silence isn't passive, it's precision. And in that stillness, you gain the ultimate power, discernment. The ability to tell the real from the false, the authentic from the theatrical, the sincere from the performative. That's what silence gives you. And once you have it, you'll never trade it for noise again. Truth number 5, not explaining yourself is the highest form of confidence. Let's talk about something we've all done, probably too many times. Explaining ourselves to people who already decided who we are. You get misjudged and your instinct is to defend. You're misunderstood, so you over-clarify. You're seen through a distorted lens and suddenly you're rewriting your truth just to be seen. But here's the hard truth. If someone wants to misunderstand you, no amount of explanation will save you. If someone needs convincing of your worth, they were never open to seeing it in the first place. So why do we do it? Because deep down, we fear misperception. We fear being misunderstood more than we value our peace. We think, if I just explain my intentions, if I just make them see who I really am, if I say it right, maybe they'll believe me. But the Stoic doesn't operate like that. The Stoic understands a simple, liberating truth. You don't need to be understood to be at peace. Marcus Aurelius said, "Don't waste what remains of your life in speculating about your neighbors, unless with a view to some mutual benefit." Translation? Stop obsessing over how people perceive you. Stop editing yourself to win favor. Stop performing your soul in ways that exhaust your spirit. Because every time you explain yourself to someone who doesn't value you, you shrink to meet their expectations. And eventually you forget your own. Let's get honest. Explaining yourself to the wrong people isn't compassion. It's insecurity. It's the subtle belief that your value is up for negotiation, that your boundaries are open to debate, that your truth needs validation to be real. But the Stoic path is different. It's about self-containment, self-possession, internal grounding so solid that misperception doesn't destabilize you. You don't stay quiet because you're afraid. You stay quiet because you're clear. You don't walk away because you're weak. You walk away because arguing for your value is beneath you. Now let's be clear. There's a difference between explaining for clarity and explaining out of fear. Clarity is honest, it's clean, it's brief. Fear-based explanation, though, that's a trap. It sounds like, I just wanted you to know I wasn't being rude. I didn't mean it that way. Please understand where I was coming from. I hope you don't think I'm a bad person. It's not communication. It's self-negotiation. And every time you bend like that, you reinforce a toxic belief that someone else's comfort is more important than your inner peace. Stoic confidence looks different. It doesn't shout. It doesn't chase. It doesn't explain. It shows up aligned, calm, firm. It lets people draw whatever conclusions they want because it knows that truth doesn't panic in the presence of misunderstanding. In fact, it gets quieter. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop seeking approval from people who aren't qualified to give it. You stop shrinking to fit into narratives that were never meant for you. You stop letting assumptions rent space in your mind. And suddenly, you're free. You're no longer tied to everyone else's perception. You've stopped outsourcing your peace. You've remembered who you are without needing to translate it into something palatable. Here's what most people don't understand. Confidence isn't loud. It's still. Real confidence walks away without a dramatic exit. Real confidence keeps its voice low when others yell. Real confidence doesn't argue with fools. It observes and moves on. You don't have to convince anyone you're loyal, honest, or good-hearted. Your life will show that. Your silence will confirm that. Your alignment will echo that louder than any speech ever could. Yes, people will call you cold. Yes, they'll say you're distant. Yes, they'll say you've changed. And you have. You've changed from someone who explained everything to someone who knows their presence is explanation enough. You've changed from someone who needed to be understood to someone who understands themselves. That shift will scare some people, but it will free you. Because the moment you stop over-explaining is the moment you start over-owning your truth. Let me give you a practical shift. Next time someone misunderstands you, ask yourself, is this misunderstanding coming from curiosity or from control? If it's genuine curiosity, a calm clarification may help. If it's rooted in control, manipulation, guilt-tripping, or projection, don't engage. Let your silence be your filter. Let your consistency be your defense. Let your energy speak where your words are no longer welcome. Here's what happens when you stop explaining yourself. The wrong people fade away, and that's a blessing. The manipulative ones get confused because they've lost control. The right people lean in, not because you begged, but because you embodied. You don't have to yell, I've changed. They'll feel it. You don't have to post, I know my worth. You'll carry it. And those who are aligned with your evolution will understand your silence without subtitles. Final thought. You are not a story that needs constant rewriting. You are not a character that needs recasting every time someone doesn't like your role. You are not a performance to be polished for strangers. You are a presence, a boundary, a standard. And the more you respect that, the less you'll feel the need to explain it. Truth number 6, your detachment in silence is what teaches them the lesson. There's a kind of silence that shakes the ground. Not the silence of avoidance, not the silence of confusion, but the silence of someone who finally completely lets go. No long speech, no final message, no door slam for effect. Just quiet, unshakable, undeniable. And in that silence, something powerful happens. The lesson begins. Not just for them, but for you. Let's get honest. Most people expect you to react. They expect you to beg, to plead, to chase one more time, to explain, to fight for your spot in their life. They're so used to chaos and emotional theatrics, they don't know what to do when you stop showing up for the drama. When you walk away with stillness, they don't know how to respond. And that's when your silence begins teaching them what no argument ever could. Your words didn't teach them. Your presence didn't teach them. Your patience didn't teach them. But your absence? That's the only thing loud enough to make them notice. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." What does this mean in your context? It means this. You don't need to scream, cry, or perform your pain to make a point. You don't need to exhaust yourself proving how deeply you were hurt. Let them sit in the quiet you leave behind. Let them feel the weight of a conversation that never comes. Let them try to fill the silence you once filled with empathy, loyalty, and understanding. Let them wonder why it feels so empty now. Because when you detach, and detach with dignity, you're no longer begging for respect. You're embodying it. Here's the part most people never understand. Detachment is not anger. It's not about revenge. It's not about making them suffer. It's not about pretending not to care. Detachment is simply this. I care too much about my peace to keep bleeding in places that only wound me. I choose my self-worth over my ego's need for closure. I will not explain my boundary to those who trample it. And that decision, that quiet, sacred decision, it changes everything. People don't change when you tell them, respect me. They change, if they ever do, when they realize you're no longer accessible. When they feel your absence more than they ever felt your presence. When they reach for your energy and find nothing but the echo of silence. That's the power of quiet detachment. Not because it punishes them, but because it protects you. Here's what detachment in silence teaches. It teaches them that they don't get unlimited chances. It teaches them that your loyalty was a gift, not a guarantee. It teaches them that their behavior had consequences, even if you never said a word. It teaches them that you are no longer someone they can emotionally manipulate. It teaches them that love without respect is not love worth staying for. You didn't teach that through debate. You taught it by choosing distance. You didn't demand they change. You stopped showing up to be hurt the same way. And suddenly, they get it. Or they don't. But either way, you're already gone. The beauty of Stoic detachment is this. You don't walk away with noise. You don't yell, "I'm done." You don't slam the door. You don't throw the last emotional punch. You just stop. You stop responding. You stop explaining. You stop trying to prove you're worth keeping. You simply leave, and your stillness becomes the final chapter. And trust me, that's the chapter they'll remember the longest. You see, people expect you to break. They're prepared for that. They're ready for the fight, the text, the desperate reply. But they're never ready for the person who doesn't come back. Who doesn't respond? Who doesn't seek revenge? Who doesn't even acknowledge them? Not out of hate, but out of radical self-respect. And here's where the deepest truth lies. The lesson wasn't really for them. It was for you. You thought you needed closure. You didn't. You needed clarity. You needed boundaries. You needed to stop fighting for peace in someone else's war zone. When you went silent, you started hearing your own voice again. When you detached, you realized how heavy their presence had become. When you stopped trying to be chosen, you remembered you had the power to choose. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you've stopped betraying yourself to keep people comfortable. It means you've accepted what they refuse to say. You've acknowledged the gap they tried to ignore. You've chosen to stop participating in your own suffering. That's not heartlessness. That's healing. And it begins in silence. Here's a mindset shift. You don't need them to admit what they did. You don't need them to apologize. You don't need the reunion. You don't need the second chance. You don't need to hear, "I miss you," because now you have something stronger than closure. You have you. You have your boundaries intact. You have your voice, no longer silenced. You have your dignity, unshaken. You have your inner stillness, the kind that can't be stolen. Final word. When you go quiet, people feel it. When you detach, people notice. Some will feel guilt. Some will feel fear. Some won't feel anything at all. But none of that matters, because you're not doing it for them. You're doing it for the part of you that's done explaining, done begging, done breaking. You're doing it for the part of you that knows. Peace doesn't need to scream. Power doesn't need to explain. And the deepest transformation begins in silence. If you've made it this far, then something inside you has already shifted. You feel it. That quiet pull. That deeper knowing. That moment of clarity that says, I don't need to beg to be seen. I don't need to explain to be understood. I don't need to chase to prove my value. The world told you that being silent is passive, weak, cold. But the Stoics taught us the opposite. Silence is control. Silence is discipline. Silence is strength. It's the choice to not react when provoked. It's the decision to walk away with your peace intact. It's the power of withholding energy from those who feed off your emotional chaos. You don't have to scream to be heard. You don't have to argue to be right. You don't have to prove anything to anyone who's already chosen not to see you clearly. You just have to be still. And in that stillness, you return to yourself. The people who misunderstood you, let them. The people who disrespected you, let them feel your absence. The people who wanted access but not accountability, let your silence close the door. You are not what they think. You are what you embody. And when your silence is grounded in clarity, nothing they say, nothing they think can shake you. Because the most powerful statement you'll ever make is not saying a word. So here's your call to action. Drop this affirmation in the comments right now. My silence is my final word and my most powerful one. Like this video if something in you clicked. Comment what hit you hardest. Share this with someone who keeps giving too much to people who don't deserve them. And make sure you subscribe because we don't do surface level here. This is a community of thinkers, warriors, and real ones who are done chasing noise. You don't need to fight to be seen. You don't need to break down to be believed. You don't need another apology from someone who was never ready to love you right. You need clarity, discipline, self-trust, silence, because that's what makes you unshakable. Let the world speak. Let the chaos scream. Let the noise spin its stories. But you stay rooted. You stay calm. You stay silent and powerful. Because now, you finally know you don't need closure. You don't need revenge. You don't need permission. You just need peace. And silence is where it begins.